I am pleased to introduce you to Emily Page, CEO of international brand and packaging design agency Pearl Resourcing. At Pearl Resourcing, they help companies elevate their look and feel by leveling up their sales. She is also the co founder of the best selling brand Jocko White Tea with retired Navy SEAL Jocko Willink, who some of you may recognize the name from his popular books and podcasts. Now, the Jocko White Tea is sold nationwide across various retailers. Through Emily's 12 years of experience launching multi-million dollar brands and private label programs across retailers throughout the country, she created a Start to Sold blog featuring helpful articles, sales advice, and resources for brand owners. And so when I met Emily back in 2014 at her very first ECRM session in San Diego, I really saw all of these tips and tricks and things that she's going to share with you today put to work firsthand. I saw these skills into action, and over the years, she's worked with a number of brands and come to about 20 different ECRM sessions. So it seemed like a really natural fit to have her come and present to you today of all the ways to really maximize and make the most of your time and pitch with the buyers at the upcoming sessions. So with that, Emily, thank you so much for taking the time to share your expertise and time with us today. I will pass things over to you so we can get started.
That's a great introduction, Sarah. I know I have such fond memories of the first time that we met, and I can say that about all of the ECRM members. I know Joe's on the call, and I have such a good feeling about ECRM, and I want to share with everyone here today that I've been where you are. I have pitched products, and I've successfully been able to get my products into retailers. And I am not an employee of ECRM, so when I say these nice things, it is not from the perspective of a paid person, but actually as someone who's used this as a tool. But I want to tell you a story that when I first went to ECRM and I pitched products, so I mentioned Jocko White Tea, but I've also gone with clients to help them improve their pitch because they couldn't figure out, how to do things. And I've successfully gotten products into stores all over the United States. I also recently talked to a client, he just hired me, and he told me he went to an ECRM and he didn't get any sales. And I asked him, why do you think that is? Because I want you all to think about this really quick. If a retailer takes the time to meet with you, they are interested in buying. If they took the time to meet with you, they are interested in buying. They reviewed you before they showed up to the meeting. They intended and gave up their precious time, which means if you didn't get a sale, it's not because they didn't want to buy. It's because something that you said did not correctly communicate that you are the solution to one of their problems. Think about it. It's crazy. It's true. So that's what I want to help you with today. How you communicate in your retail pitch can make all the difference in the world. And I want you to be a success. I know for a fact that every single ECRM meeting that you go to, you can close not only at least one retailer, but also you can build a lifelong relationship that will result in not just a sale today, but a sale over and over again. And that gentleman I mentioned, he hired me for coaching and attended another ECRM. I have a quote on my website where he says that I have never learned so much information and gotten so many leads from a meeting as I did that one ECRM in all of his years in pitching. Okay, so what changed? It was his attitude, his perspective, the way in which he was pitching and communicating to retailers. He has already emailed me multiple times. I've already closed a lead from ECRM. So let's just dig right in and get into the beauty of pitching. For anyone who is currently here, I would love it if you put into the chat whether or not you have pitched before or you're brand new. So if you could maybe write how many times you've pitched, whether it's at ECRM or other places, are you a seasoned veteran or are you a brand new person? Let me know so I can kind of tailor my advice. I promise you, no matter who you are, you will get a refresher on the best strategies and you will come away with something that will help you to pitch better. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about the 5 strategies to win, and then we'll go over some mistakes while we're on each of these slides. So the first thing you do is set goals. Number 2, you need to research your retailers. Number 3, prepare your branded presentation. 4, practice. And 5, plan your follow-up. So when we talk about goals, not every retailer is right for you right now. I meet people all the time who are like, Emily, I want to be in Target right now, and I'm an emerging brand. My dear lovely, Target could be a very difficult client for you to work with in the beginning because they are so large. Or Costco, they are so large. They even have rules and requirements for the size of business they are legally allowed to work with. Like Costco cannot be 25% or more of your total revenue. So there's a season in your phase of business where there's retailers appropriate for you. And it's important to keep that in mind because it will help you to not be disappointed. You know, that just because you met that target buyer at ECRM today, and maybe you're not right for them today, that does not mean that that relationship was not an important meeting. Tomorrow, it could be the right time. So I want you to keep this in mind, that this is a stair step to success in retail. And so every relationship, every meeting, whether they're right today or not, you should be giving your all and planning for that relationship to be a long-term one. You're investing in relationship, and you're building trust. So that's the first piece. You also want to define who is right for you today. What would be the ideal order? There are orders that are too small and orders that are too big for you. And if you know that, you will actually come across more professional to the retail buyer. They're looking to find someone who's able to deal with their capacity. So you should spend time actually writing these goals out, writing out who your ideal buyer is, your ideal order. One of your other goals is going to be to intrigue your buyer. You want them to be interested, curious, wanting to follow up, to get more information. So you want to write out, to ask yourself that question: how would I intrigue my buyer? What do I want from them in terms of their reaction to me? And again, I mentioned the building long-term relationships. This is the long game. Your retail relationships need to be based on trust. So every single relationship, every single person that you meet today is going to be someone that you're going to be talking to forever. So treat that meeting just like that. It's an investment to a long-term relationship. So ask yourself these questions as you're writing out your goals. And if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I already know goals, when you take time to write it down, I promise you, it's going to shift your whole world. You'll be more effective if you've actually taken time to write this out. So what type of shopper is inside of that retail store? You could ask yourself, is that person someone who actually wants to meet with me? And I say this because I met with a guy who had gone to an ECRM, and he was selling food for, it was like a kit for snails, and he wanted to be in Target. Now, he didn't have any other retail relationships. And so his perception of what would be his ideal shopper, it wasn't probably what Target was thinking of yet. There's other retailers that could have been a way better fit had he taken time to think about, who's shopping in that store and looking for my product as a solution to one of their pain points. So another thing is, what defines, your qualified buyer? Is it someone who can buy large quantities or small quantities? Maybe they're in your region, they're locally connected to the distributors that you're already working in. What do you need to know from them in order to verify that they are qualified to buy from you and a great fit? So do you need to know their location? Do you need to know their terms? Write out those things as a list of requirements so you can identify your best buyer when they show up to your meetings. What's your ideal order? That would be your minimum order quantity, or maybe your ideal order quantity. And after you've defined that, what would you need to say to attract that person? So again, this mistake to avoid is trying to get into the largest retailer that you can just because they're famous, when it's not the right, step for you. You should still build the relationship, ask them questions so that you're prepared the next time that you meet with that buyer to be able to actually get in. It's an important meeting to have a meeting. Even if you don't close the sale today, it's very important to have a long-term relationship with buyers because they're risk averse. So invest in them, but be aware that you also need to, work with other people over time. All right, so creating intrigue. How do you want them to feel in your meeting? Now, this is going to sound woo. I promise I'm going to get into the nitty gritty, but you need to think about how you want this buyer to feel. And how you do that is that it's about how you say things versus what you say. You want to create feelings where that person feels trust. They have a good meeting. They feel informed. They also feel safe to tell you no. It's very important to make someone safe to tell you no. So meaning ask questions and you make a safe space, because that's where you're going to know always comes with a reason why. Why? What can I do to improve the next time I meet with you, or when I follow up with you via email so that I turn this meeting into a real sale? Or you want to make sure that they can tell you why yes. Why would they want to say yes? What are the terms and conditions for them giving you a purchase order? And your primary sales tool is going to be you. It's going to be your personality, the energy that you're giving, and your presentation is actually just a tool to help reinforce and underline what it is that you are saying. And so one of the mistakes to avoid is to be needy or graspy or desperate and trying to make it sound like you have to get an order or that they need to buy from you. You want this to be a conversation where you're building a long-term relationship. So what the long-term relationship parts comes from when you're solving their problems. They will buy from people who solve their problems. And there are 4 general fears or problems that retailers have that they will never tell you because they're way too polite. They're never going to say, I'm worried about this, that you're not capable of providing this thing I need. Yeah. And so you want to put yourself in their shoes and you want to address their fears. So the mistake to avoid is focusing strictly on yourself. From your perspective, your brand is the best, but we want to tell every single thing in our presentation from the perspective of the buyer, solving their problems. So we write our script out and then we need to change it to make sure it's speaking to their pain points. And so what is the big picture? These are the 4 things that they care about that determine whether they buy from you or not. Number 1, it's sales. Number 2, profit. Number 3, reliability. And number 4, variety. Sales is obvious. They want to make sure that if they take a risk and buy your products, that your products will increase their total revenue and that buyers that are already walking in their stores will end up buying this product. The profit means that they need margins to be correct. So whatever it is that they pay you, they need to be able to take home their margins. Reliability means you are a vendor who actually delivers on his or her promises. So you need to be someone who, when they place an order and they give you a timeline, are you prepared and capable as a manufacturer to actually deliver on that promise? And variety, certain stores want stuff that nobody else has and something that makes them unique, a destination for their shopper. So if you can address these things for people, you create a magnetic pitch. So take time to brainstorm. What could you say to address these concerns regarding sales? How could you prove sales? So ask yourself this question right now. How could I prove that I would sell in their store? You want to volunteer some of that information in the chat? I'd be so curious to see what you have to say. We'll go over some of my ideas in a moment. The same with profit. How can you address their concerns and needs for profit, reliability, and variety? So some ideas that you could consider applying. Number 1 is successful sales in America or in Europe or in other countries. If you're importing, you can provide sales documentation like total revenue, units sold, stores that you're currently in. That proves that your product can sell and appeal to consumers. And you want to make sure that the shopper that's in that store is being addressed when you talk about those sales. Is it a one-to-one match? Are they relatable and similar? Profits. So we're talking about good margins. You can actually ask your retailer, what's the margin that you're hoping to get when you're selling products? They usually will tell you because you both have to have a win-win in order for this relationship to work. Reliability, you can talk about importing, warehousing, distribution, lead times. You can clarify that you've already figured out the retail business model and you have solutions. So you should be addressing these things in your pitch. It shows professionalism. It shows you've thought about their concerns and that you have a solution. And of course, variety. If you can help explain how your product is unique in the market and stands out, that's a win. So number 3, we want to talk about research. Guys and gals. Research is so important because it shows that you respect them, that you didn't waste their time asking silly questions, and that's the mistake to avoid. If you have not taken the time to read up about that retailer and you ask questions like, so how many stores do you have? You literally missed all of the information that ECRM has already provided you on their dashboard, and it sort of wastes time. It shows that you're not excited and desperate to get into that store. So you've actually missed an opportunity and wasted some of your own precious time. So instead, research them, read up what ECRM's provided, make sure you're knowledgeable, highlight the retailers that are the best fit for you. Maybe they're closest to you. Maybe the shopper is the best fit for your product. And so what are the current products and customers that are shopping within that retailer? As you're reading it, skim and look for that information. You don't want to be in a retail chain that cannot sell your product. We get so enamored with the sale, but we actually don't want just one sale today. We want sales over time. So you want to make sure you're targeting the customer or the retailer that has your ideal shopper. And every retailer has limitations and specialties. Maybe they're going for value. Maybe they're selling premium. Maybe they like to buy bulk like Costco. This type of information can be found on the ECRM page. And the more you are clear on that, the better you can pitch and speak to their pain points. And here's a secret tip. Retailers are employed by a company, their employees. And I'm going to stop sharing so you see my eyes. They are employees of a company. Their salary and their bonus, their success depends on picking products that meet those 4 needs. Those are the 4 criteria that their boss is judging them on. And that means you should help them win, help them look like a good guy in front of their boss. And one of the key things is that they maybe have 100 SKUs in their category that they are currently buying for. They are only going to be replacing their losers. It's the rule of replacing the losers. So they're not going to replace their best sellers. They're going to replace the declining products. So that tells you, if you look at that retailer and you look at the products they're currently carrying, you can even ask them questions like, what are your worst performing products and why? Why are they not performing well? And just so you know, that's the one to beat. You need to know who you need to beat to get into that store. And it is the losers, the loser products, the lowest selling products. So as we are preparing your branded presentation, which it should be number 4 here. First point is, as you're preparing your branded presentation, you want it to match your product. So the look needs to match the product. And I have given over 150 practice pitches, which is a special offer I give to ECRM. And I'm going to tell you about how you can take advantage of it at the end of this call if you want to practice your pitch. But what you need to realize is that you should be preparing your branded presentation to show packaging, not pictures of the country that you made the product, not the original raw product that's on the inside, but the actual branded packaging. Another thing is the time. So if you have a 20-minute presentation with your retailer, you should spend maybe half to 1/4 of the time presenting and the rest of the time asking questions. This should remove some of the fear you have because you don't have to have this like really long presentation. It should be pretty simple. And you want to really focus on being available to ask questions, answer those questions so they can decide if they want to continue to talk to you and place their order, which they're going to want to do because you'll do such a great job. Simplicity. People appreciate the facts, more than the style. So you don't need to have crazy appearance. You just want to look professional and organized and give them important information. And here is the outline of a successful pitch. We're going to go over every single one so you make sure you can cover the correct topics. So we have the summary, proof of concept, retail ready product information, questions and answers, and then an appendix. Trust me, guys, I have made so many presentations and I've bombed and I've succeeded. And this is a really great format. You can mix and match the ones on the inside, if you're very talented at asking questions and getting back to the presentation. But this is a foolproof way to do it. So again, mistakes to avoid is creating a presentation that's too fancy and too ornate that you don't get to all of these questions and have time to show even information from your appendix. So the first section I said was the introduction. Here we want to write an elevator pitch summary. So make this like 1 to 2 minutes. Don't forget to say your name and your company. This happens. I've seen so many people do this. They forget to even introduce themselves or say their company name. You want to summarize the product and category. So, my name is Emily. I'm with Emily's Beauty. Our products are for women going through menopause, and they are topical skin creams that come in pumps and tubes. That helps someone quickly get to the point of what it is that we're offering. Next, we go to our point of difference in the market. So I already mentioned this menopause concept. So it could be that we serve women going through menopause. We also have organic and natural ingredients. So these are our call outs that might make us very unique. It could be your brand that's special. It could be where it's manufactured. It could be special ingredients. Lastly, we want to say how it solves the problems of their customer. So the shopper inside of the retailer, what is it that they're looking for? So we could say there's a new emerging trend of women taking ownership of their beauty as they age. And this is an increasing area of demand for stores. And you could show maybe some data. You could show social media information, any kind of information and data that would help support the fact that this is a growing area of demand for the retailers that would be shopping your product. Mistakes to avoid. Oh my gosh. I've seen so many people spend the first 5 to 10 minutes of their pitch telling a lengthy story about how the company started. Now, I love your story, and your retailers sometimes will too, but you want this to be short, and it needs to be told from the perspective of what matters to the retailer. So, don't just talk about your family and how wonderful the company was and why just for hours. You want to just change it and find a way to manipulate the information so that it's really speaking to underlining the pain points of your retailer, and you want to keep it short. So proof of concept, this is where you can show things that explain how popular you are, your sales data, the profit margins that you want to give to people, that you're able to give, maybe the promotional dollars that you spend to help products to succeed on shelf, reliability. So any information you can tell them about how they place an order with you, your distribution locations, your distributors that you're currently working with, something that helps them to understand the process of working with you, that you know what you're doing and you have experience. If you're an international product company, for example, and you're not yet in the United States, you better have a plan. I don't care if you're not here in the US yet. Tell the retail buyer who you will be working with. This is a distributor we've already found. This is the warehouse where we will be bringing our products. We expect this date to be fully ready to import. So these things really make you sound smart and eliminate some of the questions they will be thinking, but will be too embarrassed and too polite to ask you. And lastly, variety. Help explain again why you stand out in the market. Show any data that shows why your product would be better than the competition. And next in our presentation, we come to retail ready products information. So this is where I also see a lot of mistakes where people maybe spend too much time talking about the flavor of the product and showing the interior ingredients. This is the moment to help your retailer imagine your product on the shelf. So we want to show packaging photos, guys, from slide number 1. I want you to, burn into their memory your beautiful brand and packaging. It doesn't, we don't need to distract them from anything else. This is what they're here to see. And they love it. They love packaging. That is one of the motivating factors that determines whether they will pick up your product. So let's show it off. You want to include product descriptions. I've seen people just list the name of the product that they call it internally rather than a more romantic name and description of the flavor profiles or what it is. The MSRP, which would be the average retail price that you expect people to sell it for. The size and net weight, and the case information. Guys, people are not going to be ordering single units. So if you're an emerging brand, you may not know that yet because you might sell in eaches or single units. But cases is what we are selling when we are going and scaling to the moon. So you need to be able to explain case information and also pallet information. How many units are on a pallet? How many cases on a pallet? Next, you want to address things like placing an order. So what's the process to place an order? If you're showing them something that is not yet in being manufactured and not yet in retail, the retail buyer will be slow to want to place an order because they're risk avoidant. So you need to explain the process to order it, the lead times, and this information just can be quick and dirty on your presentation sheet, and you don't necessarily have to read those things out loud, but just them seeing it on the page helps them, just like a resume, to realize you're a retail ready professional brand. So questions and answers. You should be writing a script of questions to ask your retailer. And this was the mistake I mentioned at the very beginning. A brand who is hired me to coach. He was not asking questions. He was just presenting and thinking, I'm done with my pitch. No. That's just the start, the warm up. Questions are where you figure out if you're the right fit, kind of like dating. You want to ask, how many kids do you want to have? Do you want to one day get married? If you don't know those things, you can't build a long-term relationship. And most people just forget to write them out. And you'll be so nervous performing your pitch that you may forget to ask the most important questions. So write yourself a script. Here are some quick ones. but you should be brainstorming others. I'd love to see if you want to type into the chat other questions that you realize would be important to ask. For retailers, what are you looking for this year? You know, what's motivating you? Do you prefer pricing based on pickup, which is FOB, or delivery, or through a distributor? So you need to know that because it affects your margins, it affects distribution requirements and lead times. Very, very important question. It shows you know what you're talking about. It shows you're worried about their priorities. Distributors do you work with? Got to figure that out, because if you're not in that distributor yet, you know, you can always tell them, oh, we aren't there with that distributor yet, but we would love to be. Could you introduce us to them and we'll happily get set up? So this question helps eliminate a reservation or hesitation that a retailer might have. They might notice you're not with that distributor they work with. They may not say something, and then you leave the meeting and they were too polite to tell you why they wouldn't buy from you. But you can solve this problem. You're not in the distributor yet. Who cares? You can get in there. This is a solvable problem. So make sure these questions are addressing anything that would cause them to hesitate to buy from you. If you're meeting with a distributor, it's one of my favorite things about ECRM is that they have retailers who are literally the real buyers who can make decisions for you. They also have distributors who can help get you into different places. Some distributors actually buy your product, you know, so they actually are a buyer, or they will be a distributor in the traditional sense. And you want to build relationships with these people, but the questions and needs that they have are going to be different. Which regions do you serve? You know, where are your warehouses? What requirements to work with you and succeed? You know, have you seen with other products and brands that you work with? Milk this moment. Get the information that you need. And now I say appendix because I have found many brands have so much information to share, it's almost overwhelming. And they want to have that information ready just in case the retailer wants it. But to be honest, they don't even have enough time to share it. The questions is where you figure out what the retailer wants. And then if they have some specific interest, you have in the appendix the extra information prepared to flip forward and show it to them and address those questions. What type of weird questions might they be interested in? Well, specialty information. So sustainability, perhaps. Maybe one of their initiatives this year is to make sure that the products are sustainable. So how do you address that issue? Maybe they want private label packaging options. So you could show them pictures of that. Or maybe they're like, oh, you're a beauty product. I need to have a point of purchase display, or I need to see what your product would look like in a display case. You can have that stuff available on secondary slides that you could quickly flip to show that you already thought of that question. If you don't know what to put in your appendix, it's okay. This isn't essential. I'm actually telling this to the larger brands who have just too much to offer. It's smart to kind of break the meeting up so that you are tailoring the experience to what the retailer really needs. And lastly, follow up. How do we do this? You have to plan to follow up before you leave that meeting. And again, I've had people who say, oh gosh, I didn't get everything I wanted from this meeting, but they literally did not ask the retailer when and how to follow up with them. So what questions could you ask them to find out what the process would be like from this moment when you leave them forward? What are the realistic timelines for that retail buyer to buy? Did you know that most retailers take a whole year from the date, like large ones, especially from the year that they meet with you to actually placing you in stores? Smaller retailers have a shorter window of time, but if you don't realize what the retailer's specific plan is, you may think that they're not interested. And that's not actually the case. It's just that you didn't understand what their timeline was or how they wanted you to communicate with them after you have pitched. And this specific, thing I want to share, I want you to see my eyes so you can see the sincerity. One of the complaints I hear from people about retail, pitching to retail, is that they get ghosted a lot. So they'll write a message to a retailer who is so excited to talk to them, and then they didn't hear back from that retailer, and they keep sending emails and they never hear back. They're ghosted. Now, I have very specific techniques for how to avoid that. And I have a free webinar that's going to be coming up at the end of the month, which I will allow you, send you guys a link to sign up for. But I want to reassure you that it's the way you communicate to the retailer that will result in them ghosting you or not. And so I want to share more with you on this topic, but you need to know the calendar time that they want to talk to you. And that's the number one thing that makes a difference between them ghosting you or not. They will not reply to your email very often until they're ready to review you again. Why? These people These retail buyers are the celebrities, the Brad Pitt, the Jennifer Aniston of the retail world. And everyone wants to talk to them. Everyone wants to get their products in. So they have more emails than you do. You and I feel busy, they're busier. So we want to respect their time and treat this as a professional relationship and ask them questions about follow-up to make sure that we don't be ghosted or misinterpret their interest when they don't reply. Another thing you should do is schedule your own follow-up. And this is hard. If you're an emerging brand, gosh, I know you're busy. I've been there myself. And if you're working for a large brand, you have so many things on your plate. Putting things on the calendar is what guarantees it's going to happen. And so you should make sure that you've written down what they said and then put it on your calendar. My other piece of advice is to email them immediately after the show or during the show, a quick message, something short and sweet. Just says, hey, love meeting with you. I'll follow up next week or in 2 weeks from now with the information you requested. So don't attach anything. Don't put any attachments to that first email because they just need to get through their spam filter. A lot of this, especially the bigger the retailer, the more thick the spam filter can be. And what's great is that ECRM has a dashboard that you can use. So send a quick message, a follow-up. Then 1 week after the show, send all of the details that they requested. And then the rest of the follow-up needs to be something you do on the calendar. The mistake to avoid is that you don't want to spam them. Now that you have this retail buyer's information, please do not put them on your email newsletter or blast them every week with new updates. These people are celebrities and you need to respect and honor the communication with them. And when you do that, you're going to make them feel safe to talk to you. If they feel that you are soliciting them constantly, inappropriately, maybe didn't listen to what they said, maybe they said, we're not going to talk about this again until August, or I'm not really interested right now, and you don't respect that and address those things in your communication, you'll come off as unprofessional. You'll come off as a super fan. And instead, you want to be their peer, their trusted partner. So the things we just went over are that you need to set goals, and I'm talking about write them down, research your retailers, prepare your brand presentation, practice, and plan your follow-up. Now, the part that I skipped was the practice. And the practice part, I want to tell you that you can find anyone on your team or even another fellow entrepreneur, like you could get your boss or a colleague to actually watch you pitch. And I recommend that you actually time it, maybe even video record it so you can see what you sound like. It's beyond embarrassing to do, but it's very helpful. And I say this because you know your brand and you use different language within your peers to describe the product. But you don't realize what a stranger would be thinking when they hear you talk about it. You might say, oh, it's nootropic. It's possible. I've met like Walmart buyers or buyers that are more in the Midwest that don't use these words that are popular in California cuisine. So you may be unaware that how you pitch is actually confusing. Perhaps you say too many ums. Perhaps your slides have spelling errors. So I recommend you take time to practice. Now, if you don't want to practice with someone else, I offer a special offer where you can pitch to me. And I only offer this through ECRM, where you can pay for a single consulting session and I will video record you for 50 minutes. I will type notes and you'll give me a pitch as if I was a real retailer. And we will make the strategy to improve your presentation, write out a script of questions to ask, and help to define your qualified buyer in order. And these are some of the final things I want you to consider. Now that you've gotten a strategy, I always say there is a formula for sales success and you literally just have to do it. So you pitch to 100 people, you will get at least one retailer. And it's about the number of times you pitch. You have to keep pitching. But there's also something called finesse. And finesse is what means when you pitch to 100 people, the same exact pitch, you did a better job. The way you presented, how you spoke, the questions, your ability to listen and respond. That can make the difference of getting one sale out of 100 to getting 50 out of 100. And I've got so many examples, of this in my own life. And so I want to remind you that 80% of communication is nonverbal. How you were there in the room with your eye contact, your body language, making them feel safe, like they're in a friendly, hospitable room, focusing on their needs. That's how you create the kind of relationship that they'll remember. the conversation they'll remember. So mistakes to avoid would be to not be aware of that, to be so obsessed with your pitch, the words you're going to say, and to forget that your nervous energy is actually probably a worse thing to worry about. And ECRM is so special because it provides an environment where you can actually build real relationships. And if you don't believe me, I literally just went to a different trade show. I walked the aisles and I was stopped by 5 different people who had met me at an ECRM over 12 years ago. I have not seen them since that ECRM meeting, but we'd stayed connected on LinkedIn and they still remembered me because of the amount of time that I spent having deep, meaningful conversations at ECRM. How weird is that? It's very special. So you can make a magical, long-term relationships just by showing up to ECRM and pitching and having this plan. And here's my special offer for you guys. I have pitched to my boss, in front of my boss, and it's been embarrassing. So sometimes it's nice to just have a sales coach. So I have a special offer where you can practice with me for 50 minutes and I'll video record it and send it to you afterwards. I also, if you feel insecure about making your presentation, your retail pitch presentation, I have a DIY template and a training where I'll go through every single slide and show you what you need to say. And you can download the template on PowerPoint or Keynote and drag and drop your products in there to make something that is quick and fast and actually follows this format. And also, if you want a training or templates for these sales sheets, I also have one that explains what needs to be on there and why. And then lastly, I have a free checklist for if your meetings are virtual, what it is that you need to do to be a success. So I will put this in the chat. So if you are interested, you can go to that website. I also have my free webinar on Wednesday, May 28th, how to sell without getting ghosted. Let's turn silence into sales. So I'll put that also in the chat. If you would like to work with me, starttosold.net, I can be your CPG growth coach. If you think your branding needs to be improved to be more retail ready and look more, appropriate for larger retailers, Pro Resourcing is my brand design agency. And I would be happy to do a 30-minute discovery call with you to help you figure out what maybe should possibly change and then help you to implement it. And lastly, let's connect on LinkedIn and social media. Please let me know how it goes. We're all in this together. I want your success. And so does Sarah and the rest of ECRM. They want you to succeed. So if you need anything else, you can ask questions and we are here to help you. Thank you so much for your time, everyone.